Our next speaker is Oğuzcan Kınıkoğlu. Hope I'm pronouncing it right. I'm giving it my best. Oğuz is an internal medicine specialist doing scientific research about animal experiments. Together with his friends, he established the Anti-Vivisection Association Turkey in September 2019, and they have also written the first Turkish book about animal experiments. In his presentation, Oğuz presents the project, which focuses on the right to conscientious objection in education. So please welcome Oğuz.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction. My name is Oğuz, and today I'm going to talk about conscientious objection in education in Turkey. Today I want to talk about what we have done so far for this and what our plans are for the future. First, I want to tell about my very own story, because when I was in the first grade in medical school, we were taking physiology classes, and I had a physiology teacher that I loved very much. And one day he introduced us the physiology laboratory, and he invited us there to have a lecture. And I didn't know what we are going to do. And when I walked in, I saw dozens of rats imprisoned in cages, and they were getting up on their hind legs, and they were struggling to get out of from their cages. And I was very shocked, because also my teacher was there was a table, and my teacher was standing on the side of the table, and I was standing on the other side, and he was wearing those hard gloves. And then I was really confused and terrified, and then he grabbed a rat in one of the cages, and he injected a medicine to its body. And then he, with a little miniature guillotine, he chopped off rat's head, and then he started to also chop the ribs of the rat. And then afterwards he started to show the internal organs of that little rat, and the organs was like not bigger than an ant size. And I didn't know what they were expecting us to learn from those little ant-sized organs. So that day we were also expected to do the same things on the rats, and I refused to be trained on animals that day. And I was really lucky, because my teacher didn't tell me that I had to. However, we know in our country there are lots of students who are not lucky as me, and there are some students, hundreds of them actually, and they had to drop out from the school because of the teacher pressure. Sometimes they were even told to leave the faculty, and they were told that they are not brave enough to continue their education. So as a situation, we are trying to also help those students, and we are trying to create a way to those students and continue their education somehow. So actually, according to biologist Jonathan Balcombe, although only 5% of the students may appear to object about animal experiments, the real number is actually 70%, and there's a really big, huge gap in between those two groups, because those students cannot tell their wish that they don't want to do those animal experiments during education. And also in other articles of Balcombe, he also mentions that those students would prefer to do their trainings on humane methods, and rather than education on animals. So we have to provide those students those humane methods, which Nick has just told us about those humane methods. And I will also tell what our future projects with also Interniche in Turkey. So we were also working together with them in order to provide more ethical and more humane methods for our students in Turkey. So a few years ago, also in Turkey, a dog was taken from street and it was brought to veterinary class, to the lecture, anatomy lecture, and his carotid artery was cut and the dog was left there until its death. And some students took some video records from that moment, and this incident really brought a big reaction to the people in Turkey, because it was those video recordings and those photos were all published in social media, and also it was shown in mainstream also. So actually it was not how to say, it was not a rare thing in Turkey, because for the last few years we can see that human violence to the animals are increasing, and this like we can see nearly every day on social media or mainstream, that some people are hurting, harming animals. Of course, they do not actually, when they are protesting this animal violence, they do not mean actually animal experiments, because also in our own country, people do not stay very against animal experiments because of the lack of, I can say, scientific knowledge. And everybody is always thinking that without animal experiments and without learning from animals, science wouldn't get better. So because of those incidents, I mean those harming animals and those videos and those recordings on social media, people and the other animal rights NGOs starting to make protests both on social media and also on streets. And then governments needed to make a new regulation about animal rights, and they promised those NGOs and people that they will make a new animal rights law. So we were invited to Parliament last year, and we were involved as NGO, Anti-Dissection Association, and we talked with Parliament's deputies there about animal experiments and what can we do in the new animal rights law. So we talked about animal experiments generally and alternative methods, I mean humane methods in education, and also how can we provide humane methods, humane techniques and conscientious objection to the students. So it was actually, it was a really nice interview with the deputies, because at the end of the speech, at the end of the meetings, they published a report from that meeting, and the report was, there was some subject, some articles on that report, and it was said that all students should have right to conscientious objection, and all universities must provide them humane methods. And it was a really nice thing for us, and we didn't expect this to happen actually. And then unfortunately, COVID-19 process made this law to be published. It has to be postponed, and we are still waiting for this. But I think hopefully in October or in November, if all this COVID-19 process would get better, we will make the negotiations again to take this conscientious objection, right? But however, if they cannot provide us the conscientious objection, and if they didn't put this law within the new animal rights law, let's say, then we are planning to meet one-on-one with all the universities, especially veterinary faculties and biology faculties. Today in Turkey, only one biology faculty can provide humane methods instead of animal learning techniques, and this faculty has and this faculty took this decision from this own commission. So after this COVID-19 process, we are planning to go to each university and talk them one-on-one, make one-on-one meetings with those universities, and with internish also, with NICJUX, we will give them the materials that they need, and we will try to adapt new humane methods and alternative techniques to their learning systems. So what can I say is this education, I mean humane methods in education and animal experiments in learning is not only about animal rights, or it's not only about human rights, because I think it's both. It's also human rights and it's also about animal rights. So this should be considered together, and we have to work together with both animal rights NGOs and both human rights NGOs, and we have to provide those students humane methods, and of course also considering animals. And yeah, long story short, I can tell those things, and if you have any other questions, I'll be glad to answer. And if you have other recommendations, and maybe in your own country, if you have some other things that you provide your students, or humane methods, and we would love to listen to those.
So there's one question actually. It was from a person, he missed some of the talk, so maybe that was answered, but he's asking, how is the parliamentary situation?
About the animal experiments, he asked, I guess, right?
For CO, I'm not sure what CO stands for. Oh, conscientious objection.
In Turkey, it was like last year we made the talks in parliament, and we do not want to use conscientious objection word a lot in Turkey, because conscientious objection also covers for military thing. People understand when somebody is having a conscientious objection, then it means that also they don't want to go to military, and it is a big problem in Turkey. So in parliament we didn't use conscientious objection word, we used humane education right. So in parliament, when we say humane education, parliamentarians also agreed what we were talking about, and we also give them some brochures that we prepared before, and they were really interested in that. And now our government also, what they are saying is they are preparing a new animal rights law, and which will be the best animal rights law among the world, what they say. So they are really paying, what we think, they are paying attention on this, and they are also really interested in this subject too. So what they have done so far is that they are paying attention on this subject, and as I told before, in the first report they have published, is they now agreed on conscientious objection, I mean humane education. So if this COVID-19 process will soon be done. I think with the other negotiations and with the other interviews, I think conscientious objection right will be put in the animal rights law. So I think next year maybe we will have that chance to, our students will have chance to not educate on animals, I hope.
Okay, well, fingers crossed for that, definitely.
Yeah. And what I want to say also is for animal experiments and for education that in Turkey we have also another regulation, which means, you know, I told about a dog was taken from the street and brought to the class, and it was dead, and it was carotid artery was cut, and it then for anatomy lecture it was examined. So there's a regulation that in Turkey, if needed, you can brought any animals from shelters or from streets to the laboratory or to the class, and you can make experiments on that animal. Normally, it's not allowed to. Nobody is allowed to do experiments or educations on animals. However, there is this saying in the regulation that they say, in case of need, and it's a very how to say open-end thing. Everybody can say yes, I was in need of that dog, or I was in need of that animal, and we should do experiments on that animal. So we can see that in a lot of cities and in a lot of universities, lecturers and teachers do the same thing, and they say we were in need of animals, you know, that we had to make experiment on. So we also are fighting to end this regulation too with the new animal experiment law.
Yes. Okay, so there's another question. Thank you for the presentation. And it doesn't exist in France. This is where the person is from. How did you get invited to the parliament?
With the new animal experiments law, and we are actually a new association. It's been only 1 year that we established the Anti-Dissection Association. However, for the last 4 years, we have been working as a platform. So also before that, we have known some other parliamentarians and some other people from parliament also. And we were not only Anti-Dissection Association, but previously we were also fighting for all animal rights. So people who were working in parliament, also parliamentarians and their helpers, I mean, they were all knowing us from the previous issues, and that's how they want to contact us. Also, all the animal rights associations created a bigger group, and we are all under of it. And we also announced that there's this group of people, animal rights activists, working for animal rights, and parliamentarians were also know that group, and that bigger group was also invited to parliament, and then we all participate to parliament with our own subjects, I can say.
Okay. All right, the next question. Does your program include the animals used in education for subjects like ethology, for labyrinths and other apparently not harmful experiments?
Okay, also in other programs, I don't know if all the programs include, of course, animal experiments, but I can say in biology and in veterinary faculty and in medical faculty, they involve animal experiments. However, only in biology faculty, only in one university that they can provide humane methods, but other than that, they all have methods with animal education, I can say. I don't know if it covers the question, but I'm not very sure about that, I can say.
Okay. So I think the question was, if I understand it correctly, that if your program, I guess, I don't know how to rephrase that right now. Or maybe if the person who posted the question, if you could write it again in a slightly different way, that would be great and possibly helpful. Okay, well, I'll just move to the next question for now. How is the progress at Ankara University for the implementation of alternatives?
Actually, because of this COVID-19 process, all schools are now closed. So we don't know actually what's the progress is right now. But when we talk to Ankara University, which includes the humane methods in Turkey, only university actually, which includes the alternative methods. When we talked to the dean, he told me that this COVID-19 process didn't make their studies and didn't make their education how to say, stop, because they could provide humane alternative methods to their children, to their students, so they could continue their educational system. And what he told me that they are the only faculty that they could continue their education a little bit more than the others. So this also proves, I think, humane alternative humane methods are much better than the conventional methods, I guess. Yes. But as I told you before, I don't know what the situation right now in Ankara University, because I think because all the universities are closed at the moment. So I think they're also stopped at the moment, I guess.
Okay. Okay. So there was in addition to the question that I asked you before, how does your program respond to or challenge non-harmful experiments like animals in mazes or in labyrinths, or experiments that are non-invasive?
Yeah, of course. We all against all kind of animal experiments, whether they are harmful or non-harmful. Okay. We are all against animal education involves animals. So I think she wanted to ask this question. So yes, we are all against every kind of educational system which involves animals. Whether it's harmful or not, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah. So the last question for now that we have.
But I have to say such thing, sorry, as just before in Nick's presentation, he told that, there are some cadavers, for example, or some surgical, there's a dog or there's a animal who is in need, so it should be brought to an animal hospital, and then those students can be learn on those animals. Treating at the same time, and also at the same time learning and education. We are not against this, I can say.
Okay. So the last question for now is, do you work in secondary schools where dissection takes place? How do you go about it?
Very hard questions, I guess.
We still have time, so.
Okay, yeah. Now I do not work such schools. I used to work those kind of schools before, which makes dissection, but now I don't. And in medical schools, mostly, how to say, we have more humane methods, I can say, when comparing to veterinary faculties, because in medical schools we have more maquettes, and we have more, we used to work on cadavers, but now we do not do that so much. So I do not involve those such things, but I know some schools, they still do that. But yeah, what I can say is this for this question, I guess. I don't know if...
Okay. Yeah, I think that answers.
And also, I'm now doing a PhD program right now in gastroenterology. So my teacher also, he's a professor and he's vegan also for the last 20 years. And he's also against animal dissection and animal experiments. And that's why he also wanted to work with me. And that's maybe also an answer for the last question, because I think we are choosing each other, you know, and he's also against animal experiments. And now in our research and in our studies, we are totally against animal experiments, of course. And we are even thinking to do some research with alternative, new scientific, innovative, alternative techniques. And yeah, that's if somebody would come to me and say that I have to do some dissection on an animal, then I would totally refuse, I can say, and there can't be a choice about this.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Oz. Well, thank you so much for your...
I thank you for the invitation.
Yes, thank you for doing this.